Thank you very much, Mr. Carl. Now recognize Mr. Edwards for any questions he may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Werfel, thank you. We probably look as much forward to this as you do. Of the initial $80 billion pay raise to the IRS, your agency allocated $45.6 billion towards enforcement, and you claim that taxpayers under $400,000 would not experience the effects of that increased enforcement. Nonetheless, according to the IRS data book for 2023, it was reported that the IRS proceeded with 495,700 some odd examinations of individuals making less than $500,000. And I'd love to get more granular and share the exact amount for the 400,000 mark and less, but the data book doesn't include that level of specific data. It's using 500,000 as the maximum in the range that I'm referring to. And that's compared to just 21,455 examinations of taxpayers making more than $500,000, resulting in just over $3.6 billion in additional tax. Clearly, American families and individuals earning $400,000 or less are experiencing the brunt of IRS enforcement actions. Would you agree with that?
I would not, Congressman.
And your basis in disagreeing would be?
Because what I've said and what I'm committed to is that taxpayers who earn less than $400,000, there's no change in their likelihood of being audited the day before the Inflation Reduction Act was passed versus the day after. However, if you're high income, if you earn more than $400,000, and the reality is we're really laser focused on much higher levels of income, for those individuals, the audit rate will increase. And I've announced in my testimony today the various cohorts, millionaires, billionaires, large corporations, complex partnerships. We intend to significantly ramp the audit rates between now and 2026. But if you earn less than $400,000, we peg your audit rate back to 2018, which was a historic low, 0.3% year over year. My goal and my intention is that those taxpayers will not see an increase in that 2018 rate.
So maybe you can help me understand the difference in the chart that I've got here that was taken straight from the data book that I referenced a while ago. And I pulled this data directly from your agency's own book. The Inflation Reduction Act seems to have a concentration of audits against the lower and middle-class American people. In fact, it looks like it's not about 95.5% of the audits have been conducted on folks making less than $500,000. And so can you tell us what is the difference between your claim that folks making less than $400,000 are not being targeted and my calculation of the table that I've referenced here?
Yeah, I can explain this. What your table is reflecting is audits that were closed, that were started 2017, 2018, 2019. It takes sometimes months, but often years for an audit to close. And so what you have, for example, is for large corporations, the audit rate, and that for $250 million or more in assets, the audit rate was 8.8% in 2019, and we plan to get it to 22.6%. That won't be reflected in our data book for a few years. So the bars that you are demonstrating are reflecting a pre-Inflation Reduction Act set of audit activity that is kind of closing up now. What has been started since the Inflation Reduction Act and what will play out in future data books is the bar chart will shift dramatically to the right as we ramp up, as I mentioned, from 8.8% to 22.6% for our largest corporations, and from 11% to 16.5% on wealthy individuals, and on and on.
And so are you claiming that the audits prior to 2018 we're targeting 95.5% of the returns for folks less than $500,000, but we expect to see that lower after the inflation
Well, the
reduction.
thing, I think also your data is raw data versus percent audited. So that would be another clarification to make. What I'm suggesting, and I'm happy to brief you separately and get in the details. And by the way, the data book in the future will be listed at 400,000 rather than 500,000 to help with the transparency. What I'm suggesting is that on a probability, you're a small business, you're a middle or low income individual, your probability of audit has not changed. It'll be the same probability that it was in 2018, and it'll be that way for years. And by the way, 2018 is a historically low audit rate. So there should be some degree of comfort in the fact that I am publicly committing to, and there'll be transparency in future data books, that we are not intending to, and I've ordered the team not to, raise that audit rate above that 2018 level. The opposite is true for our higher wealth filers, whereas I've stated publicly the intention, the marching order, is to raise those audit rates. Now, this will all be tested in public data that will be available in the future. The issue is that it takes time for these audits to unfold. An audit of a large, complex corporation can take a long time before it's closed out. We will announce, consistent with what we can do under the law, when we send new waves of audits. For example, we announced recently that we sent audit letters to 76 of the largest partnerships in the world. But in terms of when those close out, that'll take some years before they close out.
And so I think I hear you saying, don't trust the data that's reported now. It's
No,
different.
you can trust it. It just calibrate it back to the sweet spot of when these audits were issued is pre-Inflation Reduction Act. That's all I'm saying. It's trustworthy data. I'm saying the timing to assess whether we met the commitment not to increase audit rates on people over 400,000 is happening in real time. It's actually, as I said in my testimony, tax year 23, which we just completed, is the first full tax year post-Inflation Reduction Act. The audits of tax year 23 taxpayers, those people, that's kind of in more in the future than in the past in terms of the schedule for those audits.
I've gone well beyond my time, Mr. Chair. I apologize, but I would appreciate the opportunity to engage with your office further to get a better understanding, because the data that's available to us now
Yes.
says something materially different than what we're hearing would be the implications for folks making less than 400,000.
I will be responsive to Congressman Carl, and I will be responsive to you and get you what you need.